Hey y'all, thank you for joining me on another video. Last couple of weeks have been kind of hectic. My youngest was really horribly sick. He had a bad stomach bug or something. And so I was taking care of him. And then we had a ton of overtime. First of the year, we always do. And so I had to deal with that, with all the mandatory overtime at work. And then this week, a memory surfaced. And that's what I want to talk about today in trusting your body signals and your intuition. When you come out of trauma, it's hard to trust yourself and your intuition, because especially if you're coming out of heavy emotional abuse like me, um, it's really hard to trust yourself. But I've been learning to trust my instincts and trust my gut feeling, and it saved me this week. Start off, for starters, since Monday, I've been really tense, uptight, anxious, waking up super, super anxious and like on edge, and not knowing why, you know, not knowing what was going on. Um, and then, when was it? Tuesday, taking a phone call. I work for a dental insurance company. I take phone calls from dental offices, verifying coverage, members, if they have questions about their coverage, you know, that sort of thing. And I get a call from a dental office just simply wanting to verify coverage. And the man on the other end of the phone had somewhat of a sultry sounding voice. He wasn't trying to be flirty or anything. And I think I've mentioned before that that has triggered me kind of sort of before. Well, boy, did it set me off. Um, like I said, he had somewhat of a semi sultry sounding voice, and it was all I could do to keep it together. For the call, I got through the call, put myself in break, and I just lost it. I started bawling. And my coworker who sits next to me, she and I are really good friends. She's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "No." And I was just crying and crying. And she's like, "What's going on?" She thought I had a bad call. I'm like, "No, I don't know." All of a sudden, I'm at a meltdown. And she's like, "Yeah, I get that." She's had trauma issues too. And she's like, "Yeah, I get that. Sometimes out of the blue they come." And so I calmed myself down. It took me about 6 minutes to get myself regulated and being able to take another call. So throughout the day, my legs, my upper thighs, were tense like anything. And it's usually a signal of a trigger dealing with my ex. Um, and there's a reason my upper thighs get tense, but I'm not going to go into that here, um, because it would trigger some other people who've dealt with trauma, and also it's definitely not something I'd want kids to accidentally hear. But so I'm like doing my exercises, trying to calm myself down and everything. I get through the day. The next day, day started off okay. No real, issues. I get a call from a member who has kind of a whispery, he was an older gentleman, and he had kind of a whispery voice that I literally reacted like I was startled. I mean, I literally went like that over the voice. And it was just a type of voice. He wasn't trying to do anything, make anything, nothing. And I'm like, oh my goodness, what in the world is going on with me? So I had texted my therapist and told him about it. And he's like, wow, that's different. I'm like, yeah, tell me about it. And I said, I'm thinking with all it is that a memory is trying to come up. And he's like, just let it come up. Tell your body to relax and let it come up. Because by this point, when I had texted him, I told him how I was tense and anxious and I couldn't let, my body was just not calming down no matter what I did to try to calm it down. And he's like, just relax, let the memory come. And I'm like, I'm trying. But it's like my body is remembering and my brain is trying to block it. I said, I have a deep feeling that this is going to be one tough memory to get through. And he's like, okay, well, just keep doing your exercises, the relaxation exercises, and let me know if anything else comes up. Y'all, that memory came up yesterday. And as was my feeling, it was pretty intense. It was similar to other incidences that we've dealt with, me and my therapist, but it was a whole different situation. Way more intense. I mean, it was sadistic. I'm not going to go through it on here because I don't want to trigger anybody else. And again, I don't want a child to accidentally run in a room of somebody listening to this and hearing things like what went on in this incident, because no child should ever hear this. Suffice it to say, it was the cruelest things you can think of. Chances are it's worse than that. I mean, my ex was way more sadistic than I even gave him credit for. I'm realizing that now that I'm almost 2 years out. I'm able to look at it from on the outside looking in and realizing, oh my goodness. And so when the thing came out, though, I was kind of proud of myself. No, I wasn't kind of proud of myself. My therapist is working with me on that. I was proud of myself because I was able to de-escalate pretty quick, get myself regulated, and then get on with the day. Basically, I was telling my brain, okay, we're going to deal with this, but not now. I was able to kind of detach it from my conscious brain. I mean, it sounds crazy, but this is the only way I can describe it. Those who've dealt with trauma, you know. If you know type thing. But I was able to detach it from my conscious brain and put it aside and say, okay, I can't deal with this yet. We're going to deal with this later. And through doing that, more the memories started getting clearer throughout the day, but I still had it kind of detached. I know it sounds weird, but it's the only way I can describe it. I was able, more memories were coming up, but I was able to still put it to the side, say basically put a pin in it. And so after work, I went out to eat with an old friend, an old trucker friend that I've known since I worked at a truck stop. Gosh, 6 or so years ago, almost 7. And he and I had kept in touch throughout that time. His wife loved me. She was a sweetheart. And so he happened to be in town making a delivery. So he said, hey, why don't we go out to eat? Go grab some Chinese food. Sure. So I met up with him and we had a nice dinner talking about all kinds of things. Really had a nice conversation. And then I brought him back to his truck and I went home. And I came home kind of decompressed for the day, just relaxed and stuff, got in my night clothes and stuff. And then it dawned on me, oh, wait, I gotta get through this. So I got out my journal, and I hadn't been able to write in my journal all week because normally when things like this come up, I'm able to write in my journal about my feelings, and that tends to bring things up even more. It helps me process things, kind of categorize them. And I couldn't write my journal all week. It was like my brain was trying to hold it back. And like, no, no, you're not ready. No, no, I don't want to deal with this. And so I couldn't even write in my journal. And so, but last night I could. So my youngest was off to sleep. He had gone to sleep because he had work today. And that's when I decided, okay, it's safe. He's not around. He's not going to see me crying or nothing because I didn't want to upset him because none of my kids like it when I cry. And I just let myself feel it. I basically relaxed my brain and said, okay, now you can come out. And I just let it come out. I started writing it down, trying to make it in sequence as best as I could. Because there's still little bits and pieces that I don't remember, but as near as I can tell, they're insignificant pieces. I will say that this particular incident was really bad argument. Again, dealing with the kids. I will say that. And this one was like one of our 2-day arguments or 3-day arguments, which by this point was becoming all too common, where we would literally be in one continual argument for 2, 3, 4 days. If memory serves me, the longest fight we had was like 5 days straight, where it was basically one continual argument. And to my recollection, he was drinking. I don't have an active memory that he was drinking, but by this point it was rare that he wasn't. So I'm going on the assumption that he was. It's a safe assumption. and he was very sadistic, very, very cruel. In, all um, in the interest of getting me back for things I supposedly did. That's what a narcissist does, though. They blame you for things that they're doing. And so I'm going through this process, writing it down in my journal, and I'm just crying, but I'm not melting down. I was a mess by the end, by the time I finished. But I didn't go into a total meltdown. So I take that as a victory, that I've grown and that I've healed to the point to where I can look at a new memory and process it. And yeah, being hurt, crying, I let myself cry. I did not stop the tears. And in doing that, it just flowed out. And I processed it all. Between doing that, and I had some things I needed to do for my position at church, because I'm director of children's ministries. I didn't go to bed until 12:30 or so. I was finally able to go to bed. And I woke this morning. I was kind of anxious, though all things considered, I had a pretty good night's sleep. And but I woke up anxious. And I went to my chiropractor's appointment this morning. My poor chiropractor, this is him, by the way. Good Life Chiropractic, if you're here where I live. He's awesome. And so I went over there this morning to get my adjustment. That poor man, I mean, he had to practically pound on my back to adjust it. I was all kinds of messed up. When I say, I've said this before, that trauma will go into your bones, that's not an exaggeration. That's not an analogy or a metaphor. It literally goes to your bones. And because of all the anxiety I had this week, dealing with that memory coming up, my back was all kinds of tight, all kinds of out of whack. And I kid you not, I think my poor chiropractor used every single tool he had to adjust my back. It was all out of whack. He's like, man, what's going on? And so I said, well, a memory came up this week. He's like, yeah, I can tell. He knows pretty much what's going on too. Between he and my therapist, they have been a source of prayer, a source of help and healing, both emotionally and spiritually. I've been very grateful for them both. And he's like, yeah, I can tell. Oh my goodness. I said, and I didn't go into detail because I was in his office and there were other people in the office. I said, suffice it to say, it's pretty brutal. And he's like, yeah, I could tell. I mean, literally, I'm convinced, I am pretty sure that he used every tool on my back this morning. Usually he uses some clicking thing that kind of tap, tap, tap on my back to get it in place. And then he'll use what I call the thumper, but oh my goodness, this thing, I love it when he puts it on my neck and it vibrates up and down my back to put my neck in place because my neck likes to curve backwards. And I mean, usually he just uses those two instruments and I'm good. It takes 5 minutes, if even, depending on the day. And today he had to adjust my knees. My knees were so out of whack. And then he had to adjust my back even more than what he has ever had to do since I started chiropractic therapy with him. It took him a good, I don't think I'm lying when I say 10 or 15 minutes to really work on me and get my back in order. And that's what it does. It'll go to your bones and set your whole body off whack. And so I woke up this morning, I went to the chiropractor, and I had texted my therapist because he told me he wanted to talk with me when I was ready. So I texted my therapist this morning. I said, well, I got a chiropractic appointment. If you're available sometime after 9:30, 10 o'clock, I'd like to talk about it. I'm ready. So he happened to call me when I was driving after my chiropractic appointment. I went for a drive. I went to what I call my happy place. It's a beautiful park out here. That is kind of my happy place where I go to. I park up by big prairie area, and I'll just sit there. I'll park, have my music on, and I'll just check out, gaze, stare off into the distance and just let my body regenerate. So I was driving towards there when my therapist called, and he says, okay, so how is this different than what we've dealt with? And I said, well, first of all, it's the most intense memory that I've up to this date. And then I went into a brief explanation, general synopsis of what it did, because I was driving, so I didn't want to go into super detail and then be totally messed up and not be able to drive. And he's like, holy cow. And I'm like, yeah. And he said how he was proud of me that I'm learning to recognize my body signals and being able to help de-escalate. And it was because I trusted my instinct that I didn't go into a meltdown when the memories came up. Because all week I've been telling my therapist, I think a memory's coming up. That's what it feels like. And because I trusted my instinct, I prepared myself for the memory. Because you can't always control when a memory comes up. You can try, but you can't always. And the memory came up at work yesterday. And because I was prepared, I was able to detach myself and kind of detach it from the front of my brain and put it to the back of my brain. I was able to say, basically, no, not yet. And I regulated myself really, really quick. I was really proud of myself for that. And it was in big part because I had those body signals and I got prepared. So it wasn't a surprise. It wasn't something totally out of the blue and totally random. So I was able to de escalate, say, no, not now. And then when I was able to and had the time, I was able to process it. And so after I got off the phone with my therapist, I had my worship music on because that's my go to. Um, there was a meme floating around. I saw this on Instagram and I had to laugh. Um, any of you who've watched the Disney movie Lilo and Stitch, that scene where Lilo is laying on her bedroom floor with her record player right next to her and playing an Elvis song. It finishes, she takes the arm, this record player arm, puts it back on the record and starts it over, and she keeps doing that. And she's just laying there. And it's a meme and it says, mood. Sometimes me and my worship music. Basically, that's paraphrasing. I don't remember exactly what it said. Um, I kind of wish I had screenshot it because it was so perfect. I'm like, yes, because that's how I am. When I get in those moods, I'll get in my van, put my music on my phone, on my music app, and I'll put it up loud. And I'll just start blaring it out loud, singing to the songs that I know. I'll put it on shuffle, and invariably it shuffles to the song I need right at that moment. And I'll just start singing and just getting into the songs, and that does so much for stabilizing me. And so that's what I was doing after I talked to my therapist and went over with him everything. And then I listened to my music, and it helped me process some more of the memories. And then I came home, I did a few things I had to do. I brought my youngest son to work, and my mood was so different. I woke up this morning anxious and really uptight, weepy, emotional. By this afternoon, I was excited. I mean, not excited. I was in a really good mood, and all of these good songs are playing. Again, I put my worship music on shuffle, and playing just the songs I need, upbeat music, and I'm doing this and singing out loud. I'm sure people thought I was crazy, but and it's amazing just getting it all out and dealing with the trauma. And again, because I trusted I'm learning my body signals. I highly, highly encourage anyone who has gone through trauma, work on recognizing your body signals. Work on what your body is doing at particular times when you remember a certain trauma. Because it has helped me so much in my healing. Because, like I said, because I was recognizing that my body was starting to react, I was able to prepare myself. And because I was able to prepare myself, I didn't go into meltdown. I was able to keep myself regulated when that memory finally pushed through. Because, y'all, my body was fighting it. My body was wanting that memory. My body was remembering, but my brain was like, nah, dog, no, no. And it finally, I guess, decided to come out. And I was telling my therapist that the reason it dawned on me as to why it came out now, and that's because it was around now that this happened. And my therapist fussed at me jokingly and said, "You need to turn off that inner clock of yours," because I'm hyper aware of time, and most of the time. And I'm like, believe me, I wish I could. If I could, please let me know how I could do that, and I'll do it. And he was like, nah, only way you can do that is drugs. And I'm like, well, okay, I guess I'll deal with my hypersensitive inner clock. Um, because this particular incident, if I'm not mistaken, yesterday was the 2 year anniversary. And my body remembered. It was the 2 year anniversary of the incident. And my body remembered. And the reason it didn't happen last year that I can remember is probably because I wasn't in a position to remember. Last year was a year of firsts, going through everything else with COVID and everything else. I guess my brain wasn't ready to deal with that memory. And I guess this year it was. My body decided, okay, now you're gonna remember. And my brain was like, no. But I guess my body was reacting so much, my brain finally let go of it. And so definitely learn. I'll try to be mindful of any triggers. Everybody's triggers are different. It's just like fingerprints. There's really no two that are exactly alike. There may be similarities, and there may be some that are unique specifically to you. And things that trigger me that may not trigger you, and vice versa. Because there are some that are triggered by super loud noises. For the most part, I may startle with loud noises like anybody, but they're not a trigger. But I will get to a point that if even my music, my worship music, which I love and I listen to all the time, and I sing as best as I can. I can't hold a tune in a bucket, but I'll still get to the point to where I'm at overload, like sensory overload, and I'll have to turn the music off, or at best low, to where it's just in the background, so I'll have some noise, because I can't handle complete quiet. Complete quiet drives me crazy. You would think that I would love complete quiet, since I had so much noise with my ex, because if he and I weren't fighting, he had to have the TV on 24/7. Literally 24/7. Even when we went to bed, he would put a DVD in the player and loop a movie on the TV, because he always had to have that kind of noise. And that always drove me nuts. first couple of days, I didn't put my TV on at all. In fact, I didn't watch my TV for months. Um, it took several months, about, I don't know, not several, about 2 or 3 months. And I decided to buy a Roku stick. And I bought a Roku stick, and I watch a few things on Roku here and there. And I'm subscribed to PureFlix, and I hardly even watch PureFlix, um, because he watched TV so much. But yet, I can't have complete quiet. Let me rephrase, when I'm in a heightened state of alert, complete quiet is deafening for me. So learn your triggers and don't expect your triggers to be like anybody else's, because they're not. There's always going to be some difference with them. And trust your instincts. Just like I did this week, I trusted my instincts with my body tensing up, my legs, and all of this. I'm like, I think a memory's coming up. And because I did that, I was able to handle way better than I ever have when the memory did come up. And my therapist talked to me today. He said we're going to have to do a narrative on this so I can get totally past it. Narrative is basically doing a storyboard of the different things that led up to the main thing. It helps process it, get it in sync. It creates a story out of it, basically. And in doing that, it helps you put it in perspective more. I'm not looking forward to that, but everyone that I've done that with, every particular incident that I've done a narrative for, I don't deal with anymore. It's gone. I mean, the memory itself may pop up, if I'm talking to somebody about what I've gone through, that memory, it may trigger that memory, but the feelings and the reaction are gone. I'm able to talk about it and not really have a reaction to it. It does create a lot of healing. But you guys have a wonderful week. Thank y'all for watching another video. And in the coming weeks, I'm going to talk more about my nonprofit, Strengthen Families. I'm thinking about having a separate channel just for that. And I'm working on that, getting funding for that so I can get that going. So y'all stay tuned for that. Y'all stay blessed, stay safe, and have a good week.